and we're also joined by a Democratic nominee of this community as well. Just 2 weeks ago, we and I believe we should also allow the city to determine the speed limit. Thank you. I am Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, and whenever we have a shooting in our city, we have what's called a shooting response. And sometimes people say that after the shooting, why do we have the shooting response? Because we want to bring awareness to the condition. You can't have a horrific act of violence and just ignore it and just treat it as another day in our city. And we feel the same way about vehicle crashes. We don't believe after you have a family member or a person that's struck by a vehicle to just act like it's just another day on our streets. And so we're going to continue to amplify and have responses to it, because we think the families should know, not only those who were immediately impacted, but those who have lived through this violence over and over again. Violence is violence, and it does not change based on the tool that was used to carry out the violence. And so this is our vehicle crash response, and we're going to continue to do it until it is fully understood and lawmakers on all levels understand the severity of losing a loved one. Losing a loved one by lead or metal from a car is not any way easier to swallow. When you knock on that door and you state that your family member is not coming home, the act of violence that caused that from happening does not make the feeling any less painful. And so I want to thank our partners who are here, Transportation Alternative Director Danny Harris, Family for Safe Streets members who are here and have joined us a number of times, but this time Anna Cavell, mother of Lucianne Mayweather, who was killed by a reckless driver in 2013, and one of the strong leading advocates on this conversation, Senator Andrew Gonatas, and we're also joined by Democratic nominee Councilwoman Hudson, and also the former district leader from this community as well. Just 2 weeks ago, we were in Dyker Heights mourning the death of Tammy, a 6-year-old girl killed by a reckless driver. Now we're here again, standing on the corner blocks from my house, and a community that is being torn apart by the loss of a 3-month-old baby. 3-month-old baby. How inhumane could that possibly be, to hear that a 3-month-old baby was killed by a driver who had a history of reckless driving in this city? On Saturday, 6:20 p.m., the suspect was allegedly driving a 2007 Honda Civic down the wrong way on Gates Avenue in Clinton Hill. He struck a car, jumped the curb. Not only was the baby killed, but 2 family members that were there, they were also injured. They were hospitalized. The family will never be the same. Although the adults will heal physically, emotionally, they will never heal. You never heal, or you live through it when you live through something of this magnitude. And yes, we're tired of doing these conferences. We're tired of comforting parents experiencing their worst nightmare. We're tired of reading new reports about yet another child lost to vehicle crashes. And then we're tired of hearing that this year we're on pace to be the deadliest for traffic fatalities since 2014. We thought we traveled so far only to find out we appear to be going backwards. 188 people were killed today. And so it's clear we need new actions and real action. And this vehicle in particular, if we would have implemented the actions of Brad Lander's bill, this is a clear example of the type of vehicles we are looking for in drivers. The reports indicate that this suspect vehicle, registered in Pennsylvania plates, had 160 traffic violations since 2017, including 91 camera tickets for speeding in school zones, 35 this year alone. Those numbers are just horrendous. 35 this year alone. There's no reason this vehicle was still on our streets. And so we need to increase enforcement, because part of the action must be proactive enforcement. Yet the numbers have decreased almost 51% from June 2019. The NYPD and others have only issued 39,777 move-in violation tickets. But we are clear that enforcement alone is not going to solve this problem. It's imperative that we have partners in the city and state to make our streets safer. Andrew Gennardis is really one of those partners, and I want to thank him for what he has been doing and continue to amplify this important issue. And so we want to fully fund and immediately accelerate the dangerous vehicle abatement program. This is the law by Brad Lander. Requires drivers with 15 or more camera issued speeding tickets or 5 red light tickets in a 12-month period to take an in-person safe vehicle operation course. And this funding for the program was cut. It was not included in the budget because due to the COVID hit, we say let's put this funding in the budget and let's make this happen. The courses are supposed to happen this fall, and we need to roll it out immediately. And we also believe let's immediately start rolling out the street master plan via quick build pilot methods for expanding pedestrian space. We need safer spaces for our pedestrians as people are walking the streets and moving throughout our city. And double down on Vision Zero. It can't be just a slogan, it must be an action, and it must be a real destination. The motto of Vision Zero works. We need to get better at implementation. And so we also must increase the budget for DOT to expedite and expand redesign of dangerous corridors. There's just so many dangerous corridors in our city, and it's time to just make them safe for passengers and pedestrians that use our streets. And demanding the immediate passage of the Crash Victims' Rights and Safety Act in Albany. This is how we deal with decreasing and allowing the city to determine their speed limits. The more we decrease speed limits, it saves lives. Each 1 mile per hour increase in speed results in nearly a 3% increase in mortality. And it's possible to do. Over 15 years ago, when I joined advocates to call for the decrease in speed limits, we were successful in doing so. Let's put this in the power of our city, and it's possible to do so without impacting the entire state. If need be, we could do 1 million+ residents and allow the municipality so we could have smart council people to assist in what the speed limit should be in our areas. And so it's also imperative that we fight to pass the legislation that will allow speed zone cameras in school areas to be used and operated 24/7. A dangerous vehicle is not only dangerous during the daytime, it is dangerous throughout the entire day. It makes no sense. We have a powerful tool that we are only allowing during the school hours. Let's use it 24/7 and use other ways of slowing down traffic like speed bumps, which is more proactive, and let's have these speed cameras in additional location as well. And so again, we are here because this is our response. Our silence is not a response. Right now, we have a baby that we lost, and we refuse to remain silent. We're going to remain committed until Vision Zero becomes a clear reality and is within our scope and our span of vision that we carry this out successfully. So I want to bring on Danny Harris from Transportation Alternative, followed by Anna from Families for Safe Streets.
Thank you very much, Borough President Adams, and I'm honored and humbled to stand here and share with all of you. My name is Danny Harris, and I'm the Executive Director of Transportation Alternatives. As a father, as a New Yorker, as an advocate, I'm heartbroken and I'm angry. I'm angry. And I'm angry because we have to do this again and again and again. It doesn't matter if it's a baby, it doesn't matter if it's a police officer, it doesn't matter if it's a beloved teacher. It does not matter who you are in the city. Traffic violence doesn't spare anybody. And yet we still have to stand here. And I would tell you one of the greater injustices is when members of Families for Safe Streets, who have suffered an unimaginable tragedy that destroys their lives and their communities forever, still have to advocate for the same things that they were promised at podiums like this and others years ago. Today we demand something different. Today we demand a new vision moving forward. We're tired of standing at these vigils with families who have to stand here and retell their stories over and over again to the deaf ears of our elected leaders who will stay in front of us. We need action. And today that's what we're here to do, and we're so grateful to stand with all of you. Thank you, Borough President Adams, for bringing us here to demand that action. Our mayor may say this is COVID. He may try to blame Albany. He may try to blame somebody else. Let me remind you, these are Mayor de Blasio streets. These are our mayor's streets. Our mayor will inherit these streets, 6,000 miles of lanes, 3 million free parking spaces. You can blame whoever you want. But this is a city that has always been on the front line of Vision Zero and traffic safety. The rest of the world looks at us, and yet we have failed to take these incredible innovations that we bring to corners of our city, and yet we don't have the political will to scale them everywhere, especially to the communities that need them the most. Again, no more vigils. Let us meet again from groundbreaking to groundbreaking to groundbreaking across every corner of New York City. The pathway forward for this city is built on vibrant streets for people. We are advancing a vision called 25 by 25. It's time to give 25% of street space back to New Yorkers by 2025. There is no path forward for the city that is built on streets for failure and built for cars. We must build for people. Thank you very much.
Anna?
7 years ago, I lived through every parent's worst nightmare. That's what it means to live every day without your child. Like the horrific crash this weekend that killed the 3-month-old baby right here. I was standing on the sidewalk with my 2 sons, Lucian, who was 9.5, and Theo, who was 5. It was a crisp day in Fort Greene, and we were walking around our neighborhood. People were outside enjoying the cafes, and we were on our way to the park so the boys could play. I loved being out with my boys. They were funny and bright, savvy and sweet. My husband Greg and I raised our sons in Brooklyn, and they knew the rules. If they were on scooters or bikes, they had to stay on Clinton Hills sidewalks. I knew they would stop well before they reached the corner, and they always did. But that day, a few blocks on, and my wonderful child was gone forever. While we stood waiting to cross the street, a reckless driver in an SUV mounted the sidewalk and mowed us down. We ran for our lives. My young son somehow landed between the wheels. Lucian, my firstborn, was crushed instantly, just 4 blocks from where we stand today. Nothing could revive him. It was clear and final. Shock, instant and massive, was all I knew. But my little one was pulled from under the car alive. He spent 5 days in the hospital with bruises, abrasions, and a fractured skull. But he was okay. When we got home, it was so hard seeing my little boy alone every day. It brought us to tears. Up until then, he had revolved around his big brother. Our boys were always together, snuggled up under a blanket, sneaking some TV time or reading next to each other. It's been really hard for me to speak today. After my son Lucian was killed, there was a vigil in this neighborhood, and I know some of you were there. I heard it was a large one. I couldn't believe that so many people gathered for our family, but I couldn't go. I couldn't imagine leaving my house. It took me several months before I was brave enough to walk out my door into the neighborhood that I had loved. Today, I'm still here, and I had to be here today for this occasion because it's just so outrageous. I'm so sick of it. I cannot believe this is still happening in Brooklyn, in New York City, and blocks from where my son was killed. That was 7 years ago. He would have been in his last year of high school right now, preparing for college. And he was a shining star. This is the heartache the newest crash victims' families will now face. I recognize them. Families for Safe Streets recognizes them and their pain. It's a terrible club to be forced into joining. Siblings have to grow up without their brother or sister, as my son has had to do. Parents like us living the unimaginable. These horrific deaths and injuries are preventable. Mayor, I hope you're listening. We need you to act now. No more promises. We cannot wait any longer for change. Not one more person should be killed or injured on these streets. Thank you.
I want to bring on Senator Andrew Bernardus.
Thank you, Borough President. You know, when we did the vigil 3 weeks ago for Tammy, I didn't know what to say because a 6-year-old was killed by a reckless driver. And I broke down in tears because I have an 8-month-old at home, and it made me realize just how precious that life really is. And the fact that we're standing here opposite a corner of chaos, you've all seen the chaos that's been behind us since we've stood here, where a 3-month-old lost their life. 3 months. How do you even put that into, how do you even explain that? How do we explain to other people that that is even possible today? Every single one of these deaths is preventable. Every single one. There is not a single excuse on this whole earth to justify the death of a 3-month-old. To justify the continued chaos of corners like this in Clinton Hill, or in Dyker Heights, or in Bath Beach, or in Bed-Stuy, or any corner of this city or this borough. None. There is not a single reason to justify why we can't get simple bills passed through Albany to let the city of New York, the largest city in this country, the capital of the world, from setting its own speed limit. There is not a single reason on this earth why we have to haggle over the hours that a speed camera can be operational from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. We took that as a win when we expanded the speed camera program because originally they only wanted us to go from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., which was a joke. It was a win, but a cruel win. There is no reason on earth why any of this has to happen. And so we need action, and we all know that. But it's not action just from Albany, and people who say it's just from Albany need a reality check. We need action not just from City Hall, and people that say it's just from City Hall also need a reality check. We need action from all of us. There is no reason why this has to continue happening. There is no reason why that precious baby's family has to now live their lives with that hole in their hearts. There is no reason why an organization called Families for Safe Streets needs to even exist. There's no reason why my mother has to never have known who her sister was who died 60 years ago in a car crash. because someone thought it was okay to speed down a road and crash into my grandmother. There's no reason for any of that. And so we're here, as we always are, to pay tribute, honor the life of that precious child, rally ourselves, hopefully summon up courage in our political leadership to do the right thing. And I just hope and pray, I swear to God, I hope and pray that we don't have to do this again, because this never had to happen in the first place. Every single death on our streets can be prevented if we just had the courage to do what was right. We don't need to come up with a new solution. We have this. All we need is courage. And so I will certainly be taking this call back up to Albany, tripling and quadrupling my efforts to get my colleagues to support the Crash Victims' Rights and Safety Act, to support laws like Sammy's Law and the speed camera law. We did not get those bills passed through the State Assembly last year. We got half of them passed through the State Senate. So my plea to everyone here is to call your assembly member and demand accountability, demand action. Call your council member, demand that the driving impoundment program is fully funded and executed immediately. Demand accountability. That's on all of us. What's not going to happen from a press conference, it's going to happen from all of us showing up and protesting and calling and emailing and showing up places where it's uncomfortable, not just when it's convenient. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And then finally, the incoming Councilwoman Hudson.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate what everyone has said here. This crash was absolutely preventable, and I hope that we don't have to gather again saying the same thing over and over again, that all of these crashes are preventable. We need to do the work that's required to change the laws, change the way our streets are designed. We need to design our streets for those who are most vulnerable, for our children, for our people with disabilities. That's who we should be designing our streets for. So I'm really pleased to hear our future mayor talking about the commitment that he's willing and ready to make, and I will stand with him in the city council to ensure that we get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, we're also joined by the former district leader, Renee Callamore. On topic questions?
On topic. Julia first.
Eric, one, I wondered if you talked to the mayor about making sure this impound car program is fully funded, and two, what is it about the implementation of Vision Zero that needs to be different? How will you make sure that's corrected?
Proactive enforcement, and we should really think differently about those who have real records of abuse. I think our suspension of license can be longer, and I believe we can put in place a rule after a certain amount of time of predetermined reckless driving, you can do lifetime suspensions. We should move in the area of really having blocks like this. Our officers should be extremely aggressive. You can't see crashes and fatalities increase, yet enforcement decrease. That's a bad match. As a captain, I was in charge of what was called traffic stat, and we monitored each month to make sure that officers were looking at where the problems areas are and matching enforcement with that area. We should be more proactive in doing so.
Borough President, when we look at what NYPD has done in the past year or so, traffic enforcement has gone way down. There are calls for more automated enforcement, so you don't need them to middleman and police officers, essentially. What other forms of automated enforcement do you want to look at here?
Well, I believe in automated enforcement, but I also believe in police enforcement, because when you do that car stop, you're also able to determine if someone committed a crime that you won't see on a speed camera. So it's a real combination of auto enforcement, but at the same time, I want my police officers doing the appropriate car stops, doing a visual inspection. A speed camera can't tell you if someone is intoxicated or under the influence. So you need your police officers balancing that out. And then we should reach out to our tech companies to give us some great ideas. This is an amazing city with real thinkers to come up with different ways of how we can identify drivers that are speeding. What can we do to slow down this problem? I don't believe we do enough public-private partnerships to find ways of solving some of those solutions we're facing. One thing is clear, government has failed to get to the zero that we were looking for, and I think that some of our private entities can assist us in doing that.
So, to my understanding, and this is something that we've looked at a little bit, that we kind of, I had my staff kind of put our efforts on hold once Brad Lander was working on his bill here at the city level to see how that would roll out. It's my understanding that especially when it comes to the automated enforcement, we're somewhat limited in our ability to have the state remove the person from their vehicle. That has to be done at the city level, is my understanding of how the dynamic works. We don't know exactly how many times this driver was stopped or was ticketed by live enforcement. We know the automated enforcement record from everything I've seen online. So we are able to know that Brad Lander's bill would have worked if it had been implemented in this case. If you have a certain number of live enforcement tickets issued to you, we do have the point system in place to suspend the driver, to suspend their license. So we do have some measures, not enough. Now that the city's program is being implemented, we will go back and look at what other avenues exist to us at the state level to not only suspend the license, but also to remove people from their vehicles in a way that makes sure that we can, properly adhere to due process as we have to, but to make sure that we can get people, dangerous drivers, off the road. There also is, related to your question, sorry to dawdle on here, there has also been a push to change the state law in the definition of reckless driving. It should be important to note that this driver was arrested. That is a rarity when it comes to traffic crashes. I want everyone to know that and understand that. It is an incredible rarity for someone who takes the life of another or seriously injures the life of another in a vehicle to be arrested, and secondly, to be charged. And working with our Safe Streets advocates and working with the DA's office, really has demonstrated just how terrible the reckless drivers laws are in New York State. Unfortunately, because of judge-made rulings, that makes it harder and harder to convict someone of reckless driving, which prevents these cases from being brought forth in the first place. There is legislation that I have co-authored with Senators Tim Kennedy and Brad Hoylman to make it easier to prosecute reckless drivers so that you no longer have to show that you are breaking 2 or more traffic laws in the commission of seriously injuring or killing someone. That the mere fact that you were driving recklessly is enough to be charged with reckless driving, just like that. So there are efforts underway. There's more work to be done. We will continue to research every available avenue to us up in Albany to get this done.
A couple more on topic, Chris.
Yeah, hold on. I just want to add on something that the senator stated. I'm a big believer in utilizing our license plate readers to proactively go after those who have a large number of, number one, driving with suspension. Number 2, have a large number of red light and speeding violations. And right now, the red lights and speeding violations automated is attached to the vehicle and not the person. Active role of using technology better than what we do. Yeah, go. Yes. Go ahead.
You know the solution. What are you doing to get cars off the road? Less cars is what we need. There's cars running lights now. They're right behind you, running the red light, blocking the crosswalk.
I'm sorry, sister. Can you say that again? Let's be reasonable. I'm gonna chase a car that's running a light. That's why we're here. And what we should not do is attack those of us who are on the front line of this issue. That's what we should not. That's what we should not do. That's what we should not do. We should not attack, yell down, and try to criticize those of us who have put our lives on the line to fight this issue. All of us are feeling this pain. All of us are feeling this pain. And go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Mr. Borough President,
Yes, sir.
as you know, you talked about red light cameras, speed cameras. In the past, the police unions have opposed those things.
Yes.
What do you say to those union leaders? Second, you've been borough president for nearly 8 years. Is there something, a number one thing you feel like you were frustrated in trying to accomplish that did not get done?
Yes, first let me deal with the police unions. The police unions represent their members. They don't determine what laws are passed and not passed. That is determined by the lawmakers. My frustration is the 24-hour use of cameras around school zones. We should already have implemented that, and I believe we should also allow the city to determine the speed limit within the city, because for over 15 years, I was the leading voice in decreasing the speed limit in this city, partnering with organizations who have been fighting for this for years, and I'm going to continue to do so.
Okay, last question. Had a lot of important specifics.
Let's get to the last question. Answer 2 of your questions. Get to the last question. Yes, ma'am.
Almost 8 years ago, the new mayor de Blasio held a press conference much like this, surrounded by his family and his children, killed by drivers. And he rolled out Mission Zero, promised to eliminate, traffic fatalities by 2024, and that obviously hasn't happened. You're saying somewhat similar things now. Why should New Yorkers have faith that you will actually succeed where you failed?
Well, New Yorkers should have faith in themselves. I believe, as Senator Gennardis pointed out, this is not just a mayor's issue. This is not just a state lawmaker issue. This is a New York issue. And just as I mobilized families during the high crime era to take back their blocks, to be part of the community policing model, to do community patrols, I'm doing the same here. This is a problem that we are all facing, and I don't believe in disempowering people to look for results coming from others. We are in this together, and I'm going to be committed to resolving this issue, just as I believe when the mayor stood with those families, he was committed to do so at the same time, and that is my level of commitment. So we're going to do off topics if you guys don't understand.
Let me just add one thing. 7 years ago, the mayor had a legislature in Albany that was hostile to implementing many of the changes that we were talking about here that we've already done. I remember 7 years ago at the start of the mayor's tenure, there were protests and rallies down in Bay Ridge in front of former Senator Golden's office just to get 20 speed cameras. And here we are 7 years later where we have 2,000 speed cameras. When we change the legislature, when we change the people we put in charge of passing laws, we can actually change the laws. And so, as the borough president was talking about his commitment to this issue, he will now have partners in the legislature who are going to go to bat every single day to make sure that this is not just one of many priorities, a singular priority to keeping people safe.
Thank you. Thank you very much.